Hello everybody and welcome to the 10th class in the tutorial series for AWS Redshift. In this tutorial we are going to discuss what the Redshift unload command is and how to use it. In previous tutorial we have already seen the copy command. So this unload is basically similar to our copy command, but where in copy command we like place some external data into our system table. We can copy some data from external sheets, Excel sheet, or any like some text file to our table. So unload is like opposite of our copy command. So what it does is it unloads our data, any of my table data or whatever query I am running. So that data it unloads to some external file. Okay, so this is the basic functioning of unload command, and how we use it is this is the basic syntax of unload command. So unload keyword will be there, and in parenthesis and in single quotes will write our select statement. So it can be simple as select star from my table name, or it can be as complicated as select from some table unioning it with some other table, then joining both the tables with some third table and applying order by on on the whole data. So whatever my select statement is, I'll write it here. Okay, so that select statement generates some data based on some conditions or some sort of uh, commands basically. So that data it will unload to my specified location. So the location part we have already seen in copy command. So the location what we define here, if we are unloading our data into some S3 bucket, we have to start it with S3 column, two forward slashes, and then our uh, path, object path, and like file name, like that. So this will be the location where our file will be, or our data will be unloaded to. Next comes is the authorization part, uh, which also we have used in our copy command. So if you see the statement in one of the examples, so this credentials is nothing but our authorization part. So we are authorizing this unload command to put some data into this location. So this is basically for granting permission to this unload command, that uh, it is a valid statement, and it can unload data to some specified location. Okay, so this authorization part we can do in do in two ways. So first one is by defining the access key. Okay, so this is my access key here, and then semicolon, and then my secret access key, which is this one. So this access key and secret access key we get when we create our bucket in AWS console. The other way we can define credentials is credentials and then my IAM role. So whenever I define a role in my Redshift cluster, so it gives me an ARN. ARN stands for our Amazon resource number. So ARN number you get, and that ARN number you can simply place here. So that will also do your authorization part. So these are the two ways we can give or we can authorize our unload command script. After that we have some options here. So these are basically to define what format of data, what format of file I am going to create, how my data is going to unload. So something like that, we'll discuss these further. Okay, so this is the basic syntax of our unload command, and if you are familiar with copy command, so it won't be much hard for you to understand it. So let me demonstrate it to you using an example here. In our previous tutorial, we have created one dim class table and inserted some data in it. So I'm having 11 records here in 11 records in my dim class table. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to unload this dim class data. So this whole data in my dim class, so select start from dim class will give me my whole data. I'm going to unload it to this particular location. So my bucket name is training 002. Under that I have one school folder, and then I'm going to create one unloaded folder in it, and class2.csv will be my file name. So if I show you the location, so this is my bucket. Here in bucket I have one school folder, and in that presently I don't have any unloaded folder, but when I will run this command, it will create the unloaded folder and class2.csv in it. Okay, then I have defined my credentials here, and after that two options I have defined. Okay, so the first one is my delimiter. So since this is my CSV file, I'm going to store it as a CSV. I'm defining delimiter here. So whatever my data here, like 4 and this Roman 4, these will be separated by a comma. So this functioning we get by defining a delimiter here. If I define a pipe here, so my values will be delimited or separated by a pipe character. And after that I'm using parallel of. So what parallel of does is, since we have node slices in our Redshift cluster, okay, so my one node can have multiple node slices. So suppose two node slices are working on my dim class table. So if I don't use parallel of here, so what it does is it will parallelly unload using both the nodes. So two node slices are working on my dim class table, so both will parallelly unload the data which is in my dim class. So suppose the first 4 will be unloaded to a file by my node slice 1, and the remaining records will be unloaded by my node slice 2. So it creates like multiple files with the same name in my location. Okay, uh, so since that functioning, I don't want that. I just need my whole data to be unloaded to a single file. I'm using this parallel of here. So let's first try to execute it without parallel of, and let's see what kind of result we get. So I've run this query, and let's go and see. I'll just refresh it here so that you can see this unloaded folder is created automatically. And as you can see, there are two parts have been created here: CSV 4 times 0 and CSV 0001. So these are two files created since I have disabled this parallel of here. Okay, so let's see what is our data stored in these two. So as you can see here, my class 2, like this part with four zeros, this file is having like 6 records here, and my part 1 it is having the remaining 5 records here. So that's how the parallel of, if that is disabled, it will create multiple files based on the number of node slices you have. So I'm just going to quickly delete these here, and I'm going to run this one with parallel of option. So it executed successfully. Let's go back to our S3 bucket and refresh it, and here you can see one CSV is created. Now only a single file, and all my 11 records are in this single file only. As you can see here, when we unload the data, it does not include our column names. So these all are my data values only, but my uh, column names it does not unload. So to achieve this, what we can do is to mention all our column names on the top of this query, and unioning it with our data, and then unloading it. So as I have written the code here, so what I'm doing is, this is my subquery here. So in this subquery, what I have done is, I have simply selected the column names here, okay, in the same sequence what my column names here are, and then I am unioning it with my select statement, which will give me all my data. Okay, so since this unioning can be between the 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 values which are having similar data type, so if you'll simply try to union this class ID with your class ID, which is a character here, since it is in single quotes, so it won't do that. It will show an error that it can't union integer data type to a character data type, right? So here I'm casting all my fields to varchar. So this way it will union these two queries, and it will select star from this, and it will order by one descending. So one descending basically is my class ID in a descending order. So my class, which is a character, okay, it will be at the top. So hopefully this is clear to you. And why I'm using backward slashes here is because it is escape character for our SQL command. So whenever we place this backslash before any character, that character will be skipped from the execution. Okay, so this I'm placing in a single string, and this constitutes our unload command. All the other things are same only. So let's try to execute this and see what result we get. Since it executed successfully, I'll just refresh it here, and we'll see what data. So this is my new file which is created here, and we'll try to see what kind of data we have got. So as you can see, now we have our uh, our field names, our column names also included in our file. So that way you can include or unload your column names with your data. Okay, there is no shortcut to include the column names, no parameter, nothing. So this way only you have to adopt. Hopefully it is clear to you, like how I'm doing it here. Okay, so next let's come to the option list. As we have seen that we can use multiple options here, like I have used delimiter and parallel of here. So these are options, or I call them some parameters. Okay, so let's discuss what other options we have. Okay, so first one is manifest. So what manifest means is it will create a manifest file with the location where your file has been unloaded. Okay, so let's try this manifest command here and see what result it gives us. So basically it will create one more file with this location, unloaded location here. I'll just show you how this works. So I'll run this one and it executes. We refresh it here and you can see the one is my file which I required and the other one is a manifest file. So what manifest file contains is the URL which is basically my location and its content length here. So this is basically like having a record of all the files I have unloaded, okay, and using them later on in some way, in one way or the other. So that's the basic functioning of our manifest. Delimiter we have already seen, like the kind of delimiter I want my data to have. In this case I have applied comma as my delimiter. I can also apply pipe or some other character, space, anything like that. Okay, so this is my delimiter part. Fixed width is to create a fixed width file. So suppose my data is having like first column always contains 3 characters like A, B, 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 C, 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 and my second column always contains 5 characters. Okay, so those are fixed width for those fields, right? So that kind of data I can unload using the fixed width and defining my fixed width spec here. So how we define it is this parameter fixed width and in single quotes my first column name, which is basically my column ID, and then its length. So if my first column is of length 3 for my all the data, so that will be defined like this, and my column 2 if it is always 5, so that way it will be defined. So all the columns we define the same way, and this way it creates a fixed width file. Next is our encrypted. So the type of encryption we want our file to have. So basically by default we have UTF-8, okay, and if you want some different kind of encryption for your file, you can either use UTF-16 or UTF-16 LE or something like that. So this is basically to define the type of encryption we want our file to have. Okay, so the next is our bzip2 and our gzip. So if I want my file to be loaded as a zip file, okay, so what I can do is I can simply put gzip here and it will unload as a zip file. Okay, since whatever file name we are defining here, it already exists in our defined location, so I'm just going to delete these files from here and we'll try to execute it one more time. Since we had our parallel off, no, not parallel off, so yeah, just try to execute it once more. So yeah, this time it executes successfully, and let's see if it has created any zip file or not. So yeah, one manifest file it has created and one zip file it has created. So its data will be like some kind of junk. Since it is a zip file, you can't see the data directly here, but you can download it. You can you can like export the data using any uh, zip zip reader, like that. So the bzip2 and gzip are to store the files in bzip or gzip formats. The add codes, uh, like what it does is my all the data, it will just place all the data value in double quotes. So I'm having like my student id as 1 and my class description as 4. So when I'll unload it with add quotes parameter, so it will be stored like this. So my comma separated, and it will add quotes to all the field values here. Okay, so this is the basic functioning of add quotes. And when we copy the quotes added file to any table, we have remove quotes parameter or the option in our copy command. Okay, the next comes is our null as. So this is basically to define if I'm having like some question mark, 4 question marks in my data value, so to consider these as a null in my unloaded file. So what I can do is I can just write null as this value. So wherever it is null in my table data, okay, so wherever it is null in my table data, it will be loaded as question mark in my unloaded data file. Okay, so this is the basic functioning of our null as option. Next comes is the escape. As we have already seen in our copy command, escape is basically used to define the escape character. We have by default we have backslash as an escape character. If you want, you can define something like this character as an escape character, or this character as escape character. So this is to define the escape character which we are using. Okay, next comes is our allow override. Okay, so by default, as we have seen, like when we try to unload our data, when the file was already there in my S3 bucket, so that time it throws an error that the file is already present, or that location is not empty, right? So by defining this allow override here, so what it does is it overwrites the data. If that file already exists, it will overwrite the data in it. So let's execute it, and as you can see, this file was already there, but still it executed successfully. So now let's quickly move and see what the remaining two options are there. We have our parallel on and off we have already seen, since we are already applying it in our every unload command here. So parallel off basically means is it will not parallelly load from my different node slices, and parallel on, it is by default parallel on only. So it basically means our different node slices will unload parallelly the data whatever we want to unload. Okay, so the last one is our max file size. So suppose I don't want my unload command to unloaded file to have size more than 5 MBs or 10 MBs, like that. So I can define the max file size here, and after that the size, maximum file size I want. So it can be like 4 bytes or 40 bytes, something like that. So that basically concludes our unload command here. Okay, so uh, work do some hands-on on this, try to unload different type of data, make use of all these options in your unload command, and hopefully you have benefited from this tutorial. See you in the next one. Thanks.